All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, over the course of this next 4 years under the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris tenure, assuming that this society lasts for 4 more years, it's going to be a great learning experience for the so-called black man, at least hopefully. I'll be covering this concept more in depth in other videos, especially pertaining to those people. And of course, the next 4 years of the rise of the quote unquote Democratic Party, really the rise of Americanized Marxism. But for the sake of sticking to the topic of this video, I just want brothers to hopefully grasp and understand that we're going to have to move with a very high level of discernment, especially as we see the escalation of toxic femininity. And one of the core components of toxic femininity is a lack of accountability. The modern day or modernized, westernized woman believes that everything is a joke, that it does not matter what she does to other people. She should never be held accountable or be culpable for her actions or inactions. And we're going to see over the course of this segment that the defendant is an example of a so-called young black male who has no understanding of women or of this society. That's why it's so important to continuously teach on the woman, not to scold them necessarily or demean them or debase them. The woman herself is a victim in this society because she's not being taught the importance of womanhood and what that means, what that entails, and how pivotal that is to the continuance of a society that's meant to be functional. But of course, we don't live in a society that's meant to be functional. We live in a society that's meant to be dysfunctional. That's why they worship the clown god, aka the goat. The goat is the god of the modern day woman, as it is the god of the quote unquote spineless man, aka the liberal man. So a lot of you brothers are going to have to make sure that you utilize discernment and discretion, prudence in your daily interactions, especially if you quote unquote work in corporate America, because you're going to see a lot or listen to a lot of jargon getting bandied back and forth amongst people, your so-called colleagues or co-workers. That's going to be an affront and an assault to your spirit. And you're going to have to know how to control yourself until you're able to remove yourself from that environment. That's why I always state the so-called black man should not be in corporate America, at least if he's concerned about being in his right mind. So now, of course, this is going to be an update, the latest entry into one of the first series that I started on YouTube, that being paternity tests should be mandatory. And over the course of this case, we're going to see why. So they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Plaintiff Lillian Medina says after she had sex with the defendant, he disappeared. And a couple months later, she discovered she was pregnant. Lillian wants to prove the defendant is the father. So she petitioned for a DNA test, and she's suing for breach of contract. Defendant Kamari Kane says a week after he and Lillian had sex.
No disrespect to this young cat right here, but you could look at his face and see he don't understand shit about life. He's just looking around, and it's so unfortunate. Brothers bring these seeds into the world and they have no idea how to water the seed or provide light for the seed, and then we wonder why there are so many degenerate plants out here within the so-called black community. The so-called black man has no idea in general, he has no idea where his life is going, how it's supposed to transpire, what his next steps are. And the quote unquote alpha males that do exist amongst the so-called black men or amongst so-called black men are forced pretty much to just maintain their status in the shadows or in the corners because they don't want to be attacked by the powers that be, oftentimes led by the liberal black female, who looks at the so-called black man that has a backbone as a potential threat, a huge potential threat. And I'll be covering that in another video, particularly pertaining to Jamel Hill and Kerry Champion. But just getting back to the point of this video, you can look at this cat's countenance and see that he's lost, and hopefully he'll be found. When I say be found, gain an understanding of who he is as a man and what he's supposed to tolerate and not tolerate, what these modern day women are going to be bringing to his table for the most part. And what they bring normally is not going to revolve around a sense of sincerity, honesty, or loyalty. A lot of cats, it takes them very bad situations and experiences to learn this, because they're not being taught this from their youth. They're being taught that women are gods and goddesses and all this other nonsense. There's this huge effort being made to try to transition credit for a lot of the exploits that so-called black men were able to participate in or perform in the 1900s, whether it be Martin Luther King, Jackie Robinson, etc., and transition the credit over to their wives, if you pay very close attention. Shannon Sharpe on Martin Luther King Day, he opened up the episode of Undisputed by telling Skip that he spoke to Martin Luther King's daughter, Bernice King. And he said that she told him that she would like if he gave a shout out to her mother because she was the quote unquote, and I'm quoting this is what Shannon Sharpe stated that she told him. Bernice King told Shannon Sharpe that her mother, Coretta Scott King, was the quote unquote backbone of the whole operation. And this is something that I've been noticing over the past 5 to 10 years or so. There's been a concerted attempt by the mainstream liberal media, of course, utilizing the liberal black female as the pawn that she is, to try to take energy and credit away from the exploits of certain brothers who existed in the 1900s, who were at the forefront of the civil rights movements or whatever, even some of the militarized movements, and transitioning over to the so-called black woman because they're working through the so-called black woman. The Marxists, aka socialists, aka communist forces, are working through the so-called black woman because they know that she's the biggest pawn on the planet Earth, not even a close second. So these are things that we have to be vigilant about, especially in these last days.
He got locked up. However, he went to the hospital and signed the birth certificate after the baby was born.
Huge mistake. Never ever sign a birth certificate unless you've had a DNA test performed on the child to confirm that it's yours. Ever. I don't give a shit how loyal, how faithful you think that your woman is. I don't care. A lot of these females, they're living out that TLC song Creep.
Because Lillian told him the baby was his.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Now look at this broad. Oh my God. He laid down with this. This bitch is built like a linebacker. The Jets need to send her a contract. God damn, she could fill the A and the B gap.
All right, let's start with you.
Okay, well, I met Kamari when I was 19. He was 17. So things didn't go that good because I had a strict family. I was like, couldn't go to parties or go to games when I was like in high school. So
in other words, what that did was pique your curiosity. You have a lot of families that try to raise their daughters in these traditional households with strict values and things of that sort. But you have to understand, even in this society, if you try to raise your daughter that way, many times, if they're being inundated with a lot of Luciferian principles in school or on TV, it's going to pique their interest. The woman is desperately curious to be wicked. Just is what it is. I'm not saying all of them, but the vast majority of them are endlessly and desperately curious. And they end up sabotaging their own lives out of their curiosity. The only way for the woman to be fully functional is if she's moderated all the way throughout her life. A lot of people are not going to like that, but it's the truth. That's why overseas you have many of these cultures like in Iran or in Iraq or what have you, and they have the Sharia law where the woman is moderated. That's the only way to maintain the family unit. If the woman is allowed to do what she wants, she's going to destroy everything around her. Any society that venerates the woman is going to be destroyed from the inside out. It's going to be a cancer that grows from the inside out. Because the woman by nature is a self-worshiper. She's a narcissist. She's always going to start with her and not be concerned about anyone else. And it's going to cause a distraction in the mind of the man. So instead of the man trying to push society forward in a way that's going to help everyone, due to him being able to focus on things that are going to advance civilization, now he has to be concerned about what his woman is going to do next. What's going to be the next hijink from her? And that's why there's so many problems that exist in this society right now.
It took forever for us to meet, like actually face to face. And then when we finally did meet face to face, like a couple months later, we ended up.
Damn, it took forever for you to meet. But she said when we finally did meet a couple of months later, this bitch act like it took them 5 years to meet up. Now, if you come across one of these chicks on Facebook or Instagram, it better take you at least 2 months, 3 months to get to know her just conversationally before you even think about meeting up with her. A lot of these chicks are bugged out of their motherfucking minds, man.
When some things that we weren't supposed to do, one thing led to another, and we ended up having sex, right?
Yeah, because you were horny. You were looking for somebody to pop your cherry.
So it was like kind of, right after we chilled that day, I kind of backed off from him due to the fact that he was 17 and I was like, wasn't really so sure.
After you chilled?
Yeah, like it was,
That's code word for bust nuts, Judge Mathis. That's what she mean.
Like that's all he like kind of wanted in a way.
That's how.
Well, what else was he going to get from you? Of course that's all he wanted was to bust a nut. What else was he going to get from you? A lot of these females today, they talk about how all men want is sex. Well, number one, for the most part, all most of these women want is sex from a man. If there's not much that you're bringing to the table, there's not much that someone's going to want from you. How much can somebody possibly want from you if they're relatively self-sufficient? That's the importance of gender roles. Gender roles basically enforce the notion that someone is worth more to you than just her box. Now, if the woman is being trained to be a man, as most women are trained to be today, what else could a man possibly want from you other than intercourse? Because you can't cook, you don't clean, you're not supportive. So what else is there? Now, of course, the woman's not going to grasp this because she's not a three-dimensional thinker. Due to the fact that she's two-dimensional, meaning she only abides by what's directly in front of her. She's not going to grasp the concept of repercussions and, consequences for not only her actions, but societal changes. They don't grasp these things. The woman just, she's just trying to pull at any straw that's going to lead to more entitlement and more veneration. But that's going to be a cause and effect. When the woman is empowered, the man's just going to look to her for intercourse. She's not going to look to her for anything else because men are adaptive creatures.
Sex, he's chilling when he does. Okay, he's not active and making noise and talking.
Like I would be if I was with you, with your nice round, pillow soft self. Girl, don't let any man tell you that it's a problem that you round and shaped like a cereal box. I love a woman like you. Put my head in your stomach, it feel like a soft, downy pillow. He don't know nothing about no damn sex. Come in my chambers. Call me up right after the show.
Dirty and nothing.
No, we was kind of
He's just sitting back there. That don't sound exciting. All right, that's how you chill when you and your wife together.
Not me.
More active. Yeah, I'm throwing down.
You ain't throwing shit down. Your ass lasts for about a minute and a half and you pass out with your gavel in your hand.
Talking crazy, everything. My wife run out the room one time. I was talking circle. I said, I'm just kidding. Just talk. That's crazy. That's fantasy talk. Come on back in here. She said, oh, I didn't know that was some other stuff you were talking about. But no, what happened after that?
Okay, well, after that, I ended up going to, it came August, and I ended up leaving away for college, okay? Kamari, he, ended up just...
What college accepted your dumb ass? Hood Rat University?
Not texting or anything, so I just thought it was just like what little boys do, or little grown men. Young men.
As usual, one of the main tactics of a toxic feminist is to emasculate or attempt to emasculate. To claim that someone is a quote-unquote little boy or a little man or hates his mother or things of that sort. Once they see that the only thing that they were offering that man, which was sex, once he was able to attain that, he no longer is interested. The woman becomes frustrated when her sales tactic, her marketing tactic, works too well. It's like someone who's offering you a car. They're selling you a car, and you go to their establishment to buy the car, and when you drive off, they get upset because you wouldn't buy the house also. Like, that's not what you were selling. I bought what you were selling, and I left. Period.
Right, young men do. So I didn't really think nothing of it. And then a couple months later,
I don't think that you think much of anything.
I found out that I was pregnant, so I was pretty sure it was Kamari's. So I tried to reach out through him.
You say pretty sure?
Yeah.
You had been with other men?
Kind of, sort of, but not around the time that I felt like I was pregnant, that the doctor
felt like.
So in other words, you're with about 3 or 4 dudes, and you pick Kamari because he was the one who was the most likely to fall for your bullshit. Once again, paternity tests should be mandatory.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't sound certain, that's all. That's all. You keep looking at me like I'm talking weird. You are.
No,
I don't even know who you were with. You said kinda with other guys when I asked you.
No.
Go ahead, ma'am.
So,
Already, respect lost from Judge Mathis. But notice, she was trying to play the feminist role of, he's the little boy. Meanwhile, she's fucking all these random dudes. But allegedly, he was supposed to be the one to take her seriously.
if I was like kind of just didn't let anything.
Kind is not a scientific term.
Go ahead. I'll just let it talk. Go ahead. Go ahead. Ma'am, you saying you don't know whether you're with another man or not.
I was with him.
Go ahead, man. This is not
March
funny.
came and I still didn't get no sign of Kamari. He didn't respond back to none of my text messages.
What were you
Facebook
saying in your text messages?
Stating that I felt like that was his baby.
Okay.
That had to.
She felt like that was his baby. So that's how we establish paternity, through feels. Brothers, the woman always moves according to feels and feelings and emotions when it suits her. And if you're dumb enough to fall for it, the woman can sense when she's with a dumb man. But if that man offers other things that she finds appealing, she'll deal with the stupidity. As a matter of fact, she'll prefer it. If you're someone who can provide her with money or penis that she likes or what have you, but she can sense that you're dumb, meaning it's easy to manipulate you, that might actually be preferable for her over a man who she would be intimidated by intellectually, because she'll know that that man's not going to fall for her hijinks. The main thing with the woman, once again, is that her God is the God of jokes. Her God is the God of antics. They think that everything is funny until it's not, because they're so accustomed to not being held accountable. You have to hold her accountable by first holding yourself accountable. We all have to hold ourselves accountable. None of us are perfect, but we have to be vigilant. That's how we avoid the dumb shit. And in these next 4 years, over these next 4 years, you're going to see an escalation of dumb shit, especially from these women as they get overly proud and prideful, looking at the quote unquote fact that there's a female vice president. You understand that? I always go over this with brothers. Way back in 2008, the so-called black woman, your queen and goddess, she was out voting for Hillary Clinton. She was not voting for Barack Obama. Now they love talking about the first black couple, Barack and Michelle. The so-called black woman wanted Hillary Clinton in the White House. They're feminists before they're quote-unquote racialists. Do not let their racial nonsense fool you or befuddle you. It's not real.
Baby.
And you didn't hear anything from him?
No, March came. That's when in March I found out that he ended up going to boot camp and everything, and then that's why he didn't respond to me.
Okay.
So then and there he decided he felt gave him all the predictions, the dates and everything, and he felt like it was his. So he stepped up.
He felt like it was his because you were able to confuse him. He's easily confused. One could tell just by the look on his face. You could tell just by the look on the brother's face. She saw a sucker and, she threw that hook and reel out to reel him in. And he fell for it. Hopefully none of you brothers out there will fall for any of that nonsense. Always make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's whenever you're dealing with anyone.
And try to be there for the last couple months of my pregnancy.
Let me get some background from him, sir.
Oh, well, I met Lily through Facebook. I was a ladies' man.
Were you? You was a ladies' man, brother? Come on, man. That's like someone going to a fat farm and claiming that he's a ladies' man because he has a bag full of cakes and sandwiches. Of course, it's going to be easy to pull a bunch of fat bitches. You have what they want. You on Facebook, you know how many desperate women are on the internet? Most of these women are desperate, by the way. They try to cover for it with this toxic feminism, which is just a projection. They're desperate for men, for manhood. But they're being taught to attack manhood because if manhood is still operative, it's going to be far more difficult to execute a lot of the agendas. Because for the agenda to be operational, for it to be a success, it needs to be utilized on people who are not three-dimensional thinkers. It has to be utilized on people who are basic thinkers. If you speak to the average so-called black liberal or so-called black Democrat, They have no idea what's going on. Everything with them is just about feelings and optics.
Multiple women. We was young. I didn't know it was serious at the time. But she was special, you know. We had things in common. We both...
Really? You didn't even know the bitch. Yeah, I spoke over Facebook for a couple months. You don't know her. This bro's bugged out of her fucking mind. Look at her. Looking like Harlequin.
Strict.
Facebook
household.
nickname's Mr. Chill.
Yeah.
Go ahead, chill.
Yeah. So Facebook kind of led to all this. So we finally chilled, and when we chilled, we had unprotected sex. You know, we was young. We was just never
Stupid. You was stupid.
chilling, basically.
How many times?
But just one time. Just one time.
You know why?
Just no.
You're too chill.
I'm too chill, huh? Yeah, we was unexperienced at the time. Just unexperienced.
So she said, however, that you disappeared when she was reaching out to you after she left to go to college.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it disappearing. You know, I was locked up, you know, at the teacher home for 10 months. So.
How long after her going to college did you get locked up?
Probably like a week later.
Oh,
we lost
okay.
contact pretty quick.
And you heard from her in March, it sounds like she said?
Yeah, when I came back home, I came to like a whole bunch of crazy messages, like she pregnant, like she basically documented her pregnancy through messages on my Facebook. So pretty much came from all of that craziness. I decided to go to the hospital and see if it was mine or not.
You know what?
No, you didn't. You did not decide to go to the hospital and see if it was yours. You went to the hospital because you were scared. She was utilizing a trick that many females utilize on, you know, the biggest sucker in her circle of men, because that's what the woman does. She tries to figure out what type of characteristics and attributes each man in her circle has, and due to that, or utilizing, you know, those characteristics or attributes, she's going to decide who she wants to be the baby daddy, and she's going to hope that you're dumb enough to not demand or want a DNA test. And she chose you because you were the biggest sucker there.
She said it was, so I signed the birth certificate.
You didn't
I
take a
was young.
test?
No, I didn't take a test. You know, I believed her.
Wow. Never ever believe anyone when it comes to contractual obligations. I don't give a shit who it is. That's why we have contracts. That's why we have tests. That's why we have confirmations. It's not your job to quote unquote believe a woman. If you're in a position where you have to quote unquote believe or not believe a woman, it's probably time for her to go anyway. Because that means that her actions are casting doubts in your mind. There are certain things that females do where they don't give a shit if it casts doubts in your mind or not. If your woman does not care about your mindset or what's going on in you guys' relationship in regards to her actions and what she knows those actions are going to imply, let her go.
All right. So, ma'am, don't qualify things when you talk. Did you have sex with any other men? Don't say kind of. All right, say for certain. What's the $2,500 for?
Because a couple weeks after, like, the baby was born, he ended up leaving to Alabama, not really telling me the reason why he was going. He just wanted to go back to his family. And so from there, my daughter was 3 weeks till 5. My daughter's now 5. He hasn't really been in her life besides FaceTime calls or anything. So when this year I decided
How often do they have FaceTime calls?
Like every once in a while, like every week, I guess you could say. Not every
once
day.
in a while. That's very regular.
No, I feel like it should be regular, like
All
daily.
right. I know you
Okay.
got a lot of different young ideas. And
I
they
feel
are
like it
just
should be
that
daily.
young. A man that FaceTimes with his child every week from a long distance, that's regular.
So, brothers, I think that we can all tell, at least we should be able to all tell, just by the tonality in which the judge is communicating with the plaintiff, that he knows that she's a piece of shit. He just has not received the confirmation yet. He knows that she's a manipulator, like most manipulators, and also antagonists. What they'll do is they'll pick out someone who they find to be weak. There are different ways to bully a person. Physical bullies try to attack someone who looks physically weak. Mental bullies or verbal bullies try to attack someone who they feel like can be manipulated or is not very intelligent. That's the tactic that she's trying to use. I think the judge knows that the real problem with the plaintiff is that she has low self-esteem. Just looking at her, no disrespect, she's misshapen. She's desperately trying to find someone who's going to take her seriously. And in order for the modern day liberal female to find someone who's going to take her seriously, it has to be a young man who's very naive. Because most males today are figuring out that the woman should not be taken seriously unless she conducts herself a particular way.
Go ahead. How does he owe you the money?
So I told him that I was behind on my rent due to the fact that I lost my job in March due to the COVID. So he said he agreed that he was going to help me pay some rent, and I haven't received none.
You've never filed for child support?
No, I haven't.
Why?
Because when I told him I was going to file for child support, he said he wasn't going to keep a job.
Oh, so that's why you didn't?
Yes.
He said, since she's not going to keep a child, I'm not going to worry about getting anything for my baby. See what I mean by very, very young? How old are you?
I'm 24.
You haven't had another child,
No.
have you? Okay,
No.
take it.
What the judge is letting her know is that she spent most of the case trying to talk about how simple-minded, how unintelligent, and how naive the defendant is when she herself has the same traits. Once again, a lot of modern-day females are trying to prey on young and unintelligent men because it makes them feel smarter than they actually are.
Okay.
All right, wait until you're a little more mature. Sir, did you agree to give her $2,500?
I agree when I had a job.
Okay, and how long ago was it?
I agree when I had a job. That brother need help, man. The reason why he threatened to quit his job, that's his way of saying that he's under the auspices or he's under the umbrella, the protection of his mother. He's a mama's boy. You could tell he has all the traits of a mama's boy. Someone who just running around willy-nilly, making bad decisions and falling for any fucking thing.
That was about a year ago, I agree.
And you haven't worked since?
No.
Did you tell her that when she asked?
Yeah, I told her I couldn't afford to pay both for our living situations.
All right, ma'am. Did he tell you that?
No, he hasn't. No,
Okay.
he didn't.
I don't know whether to trust you, ma'am.
Well, I can help you out with that, Judge Mathis. The answer to whether or not you should trust her is absolutely the fuck not. Why the hell would you trust a dingy-ass bitch like that?
You act silly and young, and you come in here blowing off whether you had sex with other men, and therefore, whether it's his or not, then you stop.
Look at her still laughing because it doesn't matter to her. Life is a practical joke to the modern liberal female. Everything is a joke to them. It doesn't matter what they say. They'll do the opposite of what they say from moment to moment. If you want to maintain your sanity, you have to put your faith and your foundation in something that's not going to change. Not the woman. The woman's supposed to be following you. You're not supposed to be following her.
Harassing him while he's incarcerated, and then when he comes home, and then you come in here laughing and joking and talking about you kinda was having sex with other men, and wasn't no kinda, because it's not his baby. Have a good day. Your claim is dismissed.
Now look at that. The judge said that it's not his baby and she's still laughing. You see that, brothers? That's what I mean when I talk about the Joker spirit of the woman, the practical Joker spirit. Everything is funny to her. Now, this guy's still in a legal bind. He's still in a legal conundrum because he signed the birth certificate. So he signed a contract where basically he's saying that I'm financially liable if anything happens to the woman and the child. Even though it's not his genetically, it's still his legally. So he's in a lot of trouble.
You have absolutely no credibility.
Well, she can join the club. That's 99.99999% of liberal females.
I'm sorry. That's all I can say.
The bro says she's sorry. That's all she could say. You know, brothers should be able to sue females like that for fraud.
Thought it was mine. Spent all that time on FaceTime calls and stuff. I just know what to say. Lost words, really.
You should be happy with your dumb ass.
Well, she's all I know, so hopefully she lets me still be in her life.
Dumb. This cat don't understand all that wordplay that he's putting forth, trying to look like the good guy. Number one, you've already shown that you have no interest in being financially responsible for the child. So you should look at this as your out. The plaintiff has already shown that she's not going to be willing to go through the court system to enforce anything. So the Most High was giving you an out to bow out of this person's life because she's a fucking mess. You still gonna try to be FaceTiming a child that's not yours while the plaintiff will be looking for another sucker. Please understand that the integrity level of the average Western female is almost non-existent. Their integrity level is abysmal. So when events like this occur, you're supposed to be looking at this as divine providence and sidestepping your ass out of that situation. Now look at the audience clapping for this fool, acting like he still wants to stay in the life of a child that's not his. So-called black man, you have way too many problems already to be worried about shit that's not yours. Especially a young cat like this who don't have shit.
Of course, I'll let you be in her life. I'm sorry that I pinned this baby on you.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers. Peace.